on the surface, it was just another healing. Just another moment in Mark's gospel where Jesus demonstrates the power and love of God. A blind man sits on the road and cries out for notice, for care, for a change in his life. And Jesus, despite the attempts of the crowd to silence him, does notice. Jesus does heal. Jesus does offer change. And then, as is common in Mark's story, Jesus tells the man to go home. Don't tell your story, but go home. And, as is also common in Mark's story, the man does the exact opposite, praising God and following Jesus on the way. It's just an ordinary, normal story in Mark's gospel. It follows Mark's patterns completely, including the word immediately, which Mark uses over and over and over again in his gospels. But this is not just some ordinary story. Because the passage that follows it immediately is Jericho and the Mount of Olives, palms and branches and praises to the one who comes in the name of the Lord. And then the temple, the last teachings, the Last Supper, the garden, the cross, and the empty tomb. This is no ordinary healing. This is the climactic healing, the final healing. It is the end of this portion of Mark's story as Holy Week is about to occur. And for that alone, for one reading Mark and Mark's Gospels, this passage, this story, this healing ought to have some extra weight, some extra attention. Add to that this healing story appears to be a bit of a bookend. If you skim forward several chapters to where Jesus sets his face toward Jerusalem in Mark's Gospel, right there at the beginning of that journey is another healing of another blind man. Two men at the beginning and the end who cannot see, who were made to see. Emphasizing that in Mark's Gospel at least, these chapters in between are about what it means to see, what it means to follow. Chapters in which the disciples and many others with them don't do a very good job of seeing. Time and time again through these chapters, through our own readings these past several Sundays, Jesus predicts his death. He says, hey, go to Jerusalem, they're going to kill me, and here's why it should matter, and here's what you should do. And the disciples say, oh, we should seek power, right? Oh, we should oppose somebody who's healing in your name because they aren't us, right? Oh, yeah. The disciples miss the boat time and time and time again because, you see, they can't see. They remain blind to what it means to walk with Jesus, what it means to walk in his ways. Even after the transfiguration, the climax of that part of the journey, when three of the disciples see Jesus transformed in his glory, that's when they come down the mountain and yell at somebody for healing in Jesus' name, because they're not an insider like they are. But the blind man, blind Bartimaeus, who begins our story blind, he begins to see. And he follows Jesus on the way. And that phrase seems to be pretty intentional in Mark's Gospel, especially in this passage, because you see, the way is one of the phrases used in the extremely early church to describe following Jesus, describe being a Christian. You are followers on the way. follows where Jesus goes. And that's the point, I think, of this passage. Mark wants us to contrast the blind man and the disciple and follow the blind man's example. And so what is that example? What does blind Bartimaeus tell us about what it means to follow Jesus on the way? Well, I think there are three things that are clearly related. One, following Jesus requires boldness. It requires us to be willing to let go of our fear. The blind man in ordinary circumstances could have gently called out for alms and help. He could have sat there and called for aid. But crying out in a loud voice, and especially crying out, "Son of David," a political term that could have gotten them all in trouble because the Romans don't like sons of David, sons of former kings. They don't like any other kings but themselves. That's a bold action. That's a courageous action. That's an action that brought fear to those around him. But he doesn't. Because to him, the opinion of those around him doesn't matter. Only that of Jesus matters. And Jesus rewards his boldness. He can see and follows on the way. I dare say that we in the UCC, and especially in nice congregations like ours, aren't always good at boldness. It's not one of our best skills. We don't like to make waves or hurt feelings. We don't think we want to be noticed, and maybe we don't even think we can. And there's nothing wrong with knowing what our gifts are and saying, my gift is this and it's not that. And I can't go and preach in front of Congress at a congressional hearing. By all means, I couldn't either. We aren't excused, even if our gifts aren't public speaking, from being bold. We aren't excused from finding ways that we can be bold. Maybe our boldness is public speaking. Speaking to a congregation, or speaking at a church meeting, or speaking at one of those forums with congressmen or state legislatures, or in Iowa at one of the soon-to-be thousands of gatherings of presidential candidates coming to this state, starting like in January. Maybe our boldness is boldness in our sharing, and our giving, and our willingness to give of the gifts we've been given, even when it doesn't quite make sense, because we can be bold in sharing and giving for Christ's name. Perhaps our boldness is in teaching Sunday school, or leading youth group, or in offering prayer groups and leading prayer groups. It all varies. There's lots of ways to be bold. But our faith calls upon us to be bold. The blind man's example calls us to be bold, to find our moment of boldness where we are called to act, to not let fear keep us down, but to step out in faith and in boldness where God would have us go. We can do that because of the second thing. That is trusting in God. We talked about it with the kids down in front of the stairs, but it took a lot of trust for the blind man to throw off his cloak. Remember, he's blind. He's in a crowd in one of the biggest cities in Israel, in Jericho. If Jesus doesn't heal him, he may not get that cloak back. He may lose the only possession he had, the thing that kept him warm at nights in the desert coolness, the thing that kept him dry in storms and rains and sand wind, the thing that allowed him to put his alms, spread out the blanket, and then put in his pockets when he went to go buy food. That cloak was important to him, but he throws it away because he trusts that the gifts of Jesus will change his circumstances, that he won't need it anymore. But there's something better in Jesus than even his cloak. And he's right. Jesus makes him see, and he follows on the way. That act of sheer trust can be easy to miss, but it's powerful, as I think so. If we're honest, it's what Jesus calls for continuously throughout Mark's gospel. The disciples are called to leave all that they have to follow Jesus, and they do. The rich man, we talked about a few weeks ago, is called to leave his possessions and follow on the way, and he doesn't. The blind man, or the formerly blind man, as we should call him, does so without needing to be asked. He doesn't need to be asked to leave his cloak behind. He instinctually knows that to follow Jesus is to be changed and to embrace something new. To leave behind the old life in favor of the life of Jesus. As I just referenced, we talked about this dynamic a few weeks ago in a sermon. I don't want to belabor the point. But I will say this. I will ask us this. How willing are we to act with this level of trust? How willing are we to leave our cloaks behind to follow Jesus in order to walk in his way? Because eventually we'll need to do just that. Eventually there will be ways of this world, ways of our society, ways that might bring us wealth and power that are not the ways of Christ. That are not the ways of Jesus. Some of the cloaks that we cling to are weights that keep us from fully walking the walk of discipleship Jesus calls us into. Can we let them go? The blind man shows us how. One more point that has to be made, and that's not one found in this particular passage actually, but in the rest of Mark's Gospels, and that is what it means to walk in the way. The blind man does just that. He walks on the way. And what does Mark typically mean? Mark, the way seems to be first and foremost the way of community, the way of justice. Mark, like all the synoptics, sees Jesus' message as unfolding a faithful community that circumvents the powers of Rome, that says to those who are outcast, those who are disabled, those who have little influence or power, such as children, you are welcomed, you are loved, you are enough, you are chosen by God, and in you the kingdom has come near. That's what Jesus did, to gather those people together and form a community for the sake of the world and the mutual building up of each other. And also to be a community that fought against the injustices of society in radical and loving and mostly peaceful ways. A few chapters from now in Mark's Gospel, Jesus will go to the temple and overturn the tables and the money changers and be angry in acts not really of violence, but of symbolic cleansing because of the injustices being done in the name of God. That's the way of Jesus, and the way of the cross. To seek out those who are most harmed by society and both to seek to include them in our own communities and also to find the ways that they are being cheated and harmed to change those systems. It's a both and. It's the way of Jesus. It's the way that leads to his death. It's the way that we are called to follow still today. For we still have people who need to hear the message of love, who need to hear that they are embraced and loved by their Creator. And we still have empires who need to be challenged, who need to find the ways of peace and love and not violence, who need to be pointed toward a different empire, the empire or kingdom of God. We still have injustices we need to fight against racism, sexism, and, as we saw tragically yesterday, even anti-Semitism. That's our job. To fight against all of those as people trying to walk on the way. We must boldly use all we can to form community and to fight for a more fair and just world for all of God's children. This might still lead us to a cross. After all, the powers of this world do not easily give up their own power. But that's our call. That's our challenge. To align with truly seeing Jesus in front of us and walking with him on the way. It wasn't ordinary healing, just like any other in Mark's gospel, and yet also extraordinary. For the blind man, his eyes were opened, and not just in physical ways, but he saw enough to follow Jesus on the way. On this day, let us commit to doing the same, opening our eyes, to throwing aside our cloaks, and walking boldly wherever Jesus leads us.